Welcome to ReachIvy's webinar series, Know Your Top Colleges. The speaker series helps students get insights from top colleges around the world and decipher and decode the application process. So a little bit about ReachIvy. ReachIvy is a premium education and careers advisory. Over the last 6 years, we've established a strong presence amongst distinguished leaders in the education space. We've had successful admits across schools globally, from INSEAD and LSE to Harvard, Columbia, and Stanford. And we've been featured in several publications, including the Business World, the Economic Times, Education World, and more. Some of our services include counseling, college selection, essay editing and application, interview preparations, your resume preparation, LinkedIn review, and more. A little bit about me. I'm Aparna Maroo Jain. I'm a senior counselor with ReachIvy. I did my undergraduate degree in accounting and finance from the London School of Economics. I subsequently qualified as a chartered accountant with the Institute in England and Wales. I've worked with Deloitte in London and then as an entrepreneur in India, as well as I've had several years of experience in learning and development with various investment banks and the Big Four in India. So we've got with us today Michael Cuneo, who's the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Hi, Michael.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Michael?
Like you said, I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, which is the newest school at Johns Hopkins University. I'm primarily responsible for working with the MBA, international MBA applicants to our global MBA, though I also do a little bit with all the applicants in India, as I'm the person who does all the travel and recruitment in India.
Excellent. Okay, so Michael, let's start with some of the questions we've got for you today.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about the background for Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. So a little bit about the very interesting motto that the school has, as well as location, history, and so on.
So Hopkins had been doing business education for close to 100 years. We have MBAs going back to the early 1980s, but it wasn't until 2007 where we became a standalone business school, separate from the School of Education, and we started doing full-time programs and recruiting students from around the world. So previously it was a part-time programs. 2007, we became the Carey Business School, building on those already established foundations. Our motto is doing business or teaching business with humanity in mind. And so the first full-time program to come online is the Global MBA, which started in 2010. And we brought all our other specialty master's degrees as full-time versions in the meantime. So now we are firmly established as the full-time business school at Johns Hopkins University. The school for the MBA portion is located in Baltimore, Maryland, which is about 50 miles north of Washington, D.C., on the East Coast of the United States. And we do have a campus in Washington, D.C. as well, where some of the specialty master's degrees take place.
Wow, excellent. And can you tell us a little bit more about the MBA program at the Carey Business School? So just about specific degree, overviews or core curriculum details.
Sure. It's a 2-year program. It's cohort based, which means you're put into a group with, no matter how big the batch is, the cohorts are 35 to 40 students, and you'll actually go through the first year doing the core curriculum, which is like a managerial toolbox that everyone does with that same group of students during the first year. So it's a very tight-knit collaborative community. There are 2 experiential learning projects that are part of the curriculum. The first is during the first year. It's called Innovation for Humanity. It is a consulting project that takes someplace around the world in a developing economy where the client is an entity or business or entrepreneur that is doing something that ties into the UN's 17 goals for sustainable development. That's during the first year. And in the second year, students have a choice between three experiential learning projects. They're Discovery to Market, City Labs, and a healthcare management consulting project. They are all these projects are real life consulting projects that are like having small internships built into the program. So they're real resume worthy projects. And again, we like to emphasize that small cohort, the small batch, because that makes for the most, we feel, the great faculty to student ratio and a very strong collaborative community that works together during those 2 years.
Okay, thank you for that overview, and it gives us a good sense of what to expect over the 2 years. However, there is a lot of curiosity among our students on what would a classic day be like in the MBA program at the Carey Business School. Can you describe it for us?
Sure, that changes from the first year to the second year, but we start out by front loading all the more difficult quant, statistics, financial courses in the first semester. So during the first year, depending on your cohort, you'll be going to class either Monday through Thursday in the morning or Monday through Thursday in the afternoon. Now, that doesn't mean it's a short day because there's a lot of things going on outside of the classroom, seminars and workshops and career coaching appointments in career development with your career coach, networking events, and things that are done not only by career development or alumni, but by the student organizations, which are, unlike many undergraduate, are actually quite serious and really career oriented. So either by industry or functional area. So there's always things going on to supplement and flesh out what's going on in the classroom in terms of networking, skill building and development, and that sort of thing. So I tell students, at least during the first year, you should expect to be at school doing something, whether it's group work or these supplemental activities, or in the classroom Monday through Friday, at least during normal business hours, 8:30 to 5, and often beyond that. So the first year is quite busy. The second year, I would say there is no typical day, as students have more flexibility as they're pursuing electives, their concentrations, perhaps continuing with internships that they did during the summer. They have the ability to more individualize their day and make it work best for them.
Okay, that sounds very, very intensive and very exciting. Can you tell us about some of the facilities available to students who want to switch careers or pursue entrepreneurial interests whilst in the program?
Well, switching careers, we're very focused and nimble and ready for that. I'd say about 50% of our students are making major career changes. So they're working even more closely with the resources available to them through career development. Some of those things I mentioned with what you'd be doing outside of the classroom. Every MBA student has unlimited access to a career coach. And a crucial part of that is identifying the skills that are needed for the career you want to switch to, and then doing an inventory of the skills you have so that you can focus on building the skills you don't have while you're in the 2 years of the program, which internships to pursue in order to get the best job in that new career area when you graduate. Another part of that is going through these networking events and getting, insights and ideas from people who are already in the industry that you want to switch to, and of course, collaborating with other students that are interested in that area that you want to switch to. So it's kind of a big melting pot of ideas to help you prepare and make that adjustment in that switch. For students with entrepreneurial endeavors and things they want to do. We have a great student organization called the Innovation Factory. That's where students from all across the university, not just the business school, come together and do activities, work together and coming up with ideas and developing them for entrepreneurial endeavors. A couple times a year, they do pitch days where venture capitalists or other possible investors come to the school and they can pitch ideas. And the university, as a university-wide whole, has a few incubating labs for upcoming entrepreneurs and places where students can try to develop businesses while they're in school and after they graduate as well. So they bring together students from all over the university, not just the business school. Of course, we're famous for healthcare and healthcare developments and ideas, but we also have a great engineering department and other departments. So there's lots of different collaborations and overlap of ideas percolating in the school as far as entrepreneurialism goes.
Okay, that's very useful to know, and I'm sure that answers a lot of questions that people do have. With deadlines just passed, there is again a lot of interest in knowing what kind of statistics there are with regard to who you're looking for in your incoming class. So for example, is there a standard GPA or a GMAT or GRE score you look at? Years of work experience or anything like that?
Sure. So our average GPA is 3.4. The average GMAT score is a 650. We do accept the GRE, but we would convert that to a GMAT. The average work experience is about 5 years. We say the preferred minimum is 2 years. I know there is a lot of interest in going right into an MBA program from undergrad. It is possible, but it is very, very difficult. So we do allow a tiny number of students in right out of undergrad or with less than 2 years, but your GMAT has to be that much higher, and your GPA has to be that much higher, and you have to have done internships or other work-like experiences. So there aren't particular cutoffs for any of these three areas. We look at students holistically, so there isn't necessarily a breaking point for a lower GMAT or a lower GPA, but these things can balance each other out. So having a poor undergraduate GPA can be, of course, balanced out by having more work experience, 7 or 8 years. The more work experience you have, the less important your undergraduate GPA is, because it becomes. I don't think that any one thing will necessarily strike you out. We do look at everyone as a whole. So that's what I like to call the on paper things we're looking for. Off paper, or more insubstantial things we're looking for is we're not looking for prerequisites. So you can come from any educational or work background you could imagine. We've had people come from traditional business backgrounds, of course, with business studies as undergrads, but we've had people from the arts, from politics, from military, engineering, you name it, healthcare, all over the place, doctors, dentists. So it's the quality and quantity of the work, not the area that the work was in. And the same with the studies and other degree programs. It's the quality of your studies, not the area that you did studies in.
Okay, and in terms of particular student traits or leadership experience, being able to pick the right program is crucial given the number of options available. And at ReachIvy, we face a number of students. We meet a number of students who face this decision. So, who should ideally be applying? Besides what you've already
So yeah, besides those hard kind of things, we are looking for people with leadership experience, and that doesn't necessarily mean having a title or being a leader in the formal sense, but people who have shown initiative to make things happen, have motivated other people, have gotten people people to buy into their ideas or give them the opportunity to make change happen, and then having followed through to build something, to make a change at their work or their school, to create a new organization or a new way of doing things, a new process at their job. So when we say we look for people who built something, we don't necessarily mean a, a, subs, a solid object, but created something in the broadest sense of the term, showed initiative. Initiative and leadership overlap quite a bit. And then on top of all that, we're looking for people who've had experiences or can show potential for working very well in groups, being nimble and moving back and forth between leading a group and not everyone can lead an endeavor every time. So you need to be able to move back and forth. But working on major projects at school or in the workplace that had deadlines that had firm deliverables and were of importance to the organization.
Okay. And with regard to this year's application, can you talk us through that?
It's a pretty standard U.S. application. It's, of course, online. We need your resume, of course, one recommender, so one professional preferred, not academic recommender, to fill out a brief form about you and then provide a letter. There'll be 2 essays. We have set topics rather than asking for a statement of purpose. So one topic is set, and the second topic you can choose between 5. Normally, we require the TOEFL or IELTS, but if you, like most Indian students, went to school where English was the exclusive mode of instruction, you can have the TOEFL requirement waived. There's a form that's part of the application that you can fill out. We do require for your academic record a course-by-course credential evaluation. So there are 3 agencies that we will accept evaluations from listed on our website, and that does have to be done in order to receive an admissions decision. We don't do conditional admission based on that. So that something to get started on right away if you're thinking about applying. And then, of course, the GMAT or GRE score. And finally, after you have all that together and have submitted a completed application, I would reach out to you for the MBA, if you're applying to the MBA, to do a interview. For this round, for this year, this incoming batch, it would be definitely by Skype. But if you're applying for future years, there are times I'm in India doing recruiting events, and I try to do interviews in person. So either in person or in Skype.
Okay, great. And every year we get students who applied on their own previously and are now reapplying through ReachIvy as they're very committed to Johns Hopkins. Any advice and do's and don'ts for students who are reapplying?
There's really nothing to worry about doing differently when you reapply. Usually it's going to be, there's nothing you can do about your undergraduate GPA. That's set in stone. Obviously, since time has gone by, though, you have more work experience, so that's in your favor. So the only major thing I could think of that would have held students up is having a very low GMAT or GRE score. So before you reapply, you want to reevaluate and at all possible take coursework and do development and trainings to help you prepare more for the GMAT or GRE to get a better score. And then focus, of course, the other things you can focus on are your essays and your recommender. Shore those things up as much as possible. If you can, if you're reapplying to the MBA, reach out to me and beforehand and ask what it might have been that got you rejected the first time around. I'd be happy to do that. And if you're applying to another program at Carey, one of our other admissions officers should also be happy to do that as well. So other than that, there's really just a checkbox asking if you've applied to Johns Hopkins or to us before, and there's nothing special you'll need to address. Just make sure you have a better profile and application in the ways that I mentioned.
Okay, great. That answers a lot of questions for people. And in terms of financial aid, which is the other big question, is there any particular type of financial aid that's available to international students applying for the program? And if so, can you tell us who the ideal candidate or what the ideal candidate would have?
Sure. So when you apply, we're also considering you for a merit scholarship. There's no separate application. It's those main three things that also apply to admission: your GPA at other degree programs, your work experience, and your GMAT or GRE score. Those are the really main focus jumping off points for considering a merit scholarship. We do take some other smaller things into account, like where you're from, how unique you are, in the sense of that educational and work background. So if you come from something we've never had before, like maybe you were a lawyer or a judge in India and want to get an MBA. We've never had someone from that background before that I can think of. So that would make our eyes light up and be maybe be a little more generous with scholarship money. So we take that into account. And then when you get your admission letter, you also find out at the same time how much of a scholarship you might receive. They range from 10,000 to full tuition. And that's pretty much the only really firm aid you'll expect to receive from us ahead of time. And you will find that for the most part, there is not a lot of aid beyond scholarships for graduate students in the U.S. in particular. Beyond that, you can avail yourself to loans, not through the school, but we were recently on the list of some loan agencies that now do loans for international students through that don't require collateral or cosigners. So you can look into that on our website as well. But those are outside organizations. And we do have a few smaller scholarships that are available that you do apply for separately through the financial aid office, but those aren't awarded until the first semester begins. So it's some more of a bonus than something you could look at to rely on to make that financial decision and do your final planning. But definitely don't cut that out or count that out. And many students will apply for jobs on campus as well. You'll be able to work on campus, though it's not guaranteed, up to 20 hours a week. If you can, and many of the Indian students do have jobs on campus. They pay about $13 an hour, so it's a little something extra there as well with living expenses.
Okay, and speaking of international students, is there any specific way in which Johns Hopkins assists international students with career guidance and placement? So, for example, if somebody wanted to go back to their home country, what kind of support could they receive?
Well, you have students have full access to that career coach that I mentioned and the industry experts for each different industry that we have in career development. Now, that said, I do have to admit we are a bit weak with India because since the program began, all of our Indian students have stayed in the U.S. who have graduated from the MBA and are working in the U.S. Even today. So we don't have the MBA alumni who've gone back to India and gotten jobs and have kind of helped us by giving back and creating those contacts in places in India. So other countries like China, we do have quite a few students who go back, but for better or worse, most of the Indian graduates would say for better, they've stayed in the US because that's what they've wanted. And I would like to mention that for the past 2 years, it was an Indian graduate who received the highest salary upon graduation with that job in the U.S. So we're pretty happy with that. And so obviously there are a lot of good resources to position Indian graduates in particular to get those jobs that they're looking for in the United States.
Well, I'm sure that's a lot of good news for everyone who's watching and has applied to Johns Hopkins this year and will do in the next few years. So finally, if there's one piece of advice you had to give to students that were interested in applying to this program, what would it be?
Be yourself. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Don't present to us the self that you think we're necessarily looking for. But be honest, be sincere, and that really goes a long way. Sincerity usually translates to genuine interest and excitement, and that's what pulls us in rather than hearing the same thing that people think we want to hear kind of by rote. So again, we are looking for unique people, people from very different backgrounds, both, demographically, but also work and education wise. So highlight those differences rather than thinking you should be highlighting how you're like a typical business student.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's been great, having you with us, and thank you for taking
Thank you.
to us.
Thanks very much. We appreciate it.